Tell me about the hiring mistakes you've made and why you've made those and what you've changed.
Yeah,
Because everybody makes mistakes. So,
right. No, yep, for sure. It's hard to say, like, you know, what we do well now is easy to say, and I should be doing more introspection to say, what did really go wrong there? Or what are the common
mhm,
themes, because
mhm,
to be fair, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, how did those go wrong? And I don't know if it's more of the hiring or we haven't let someone go in a long time, but we
okay.
definitely did have. And I think it was more in my earlier days as a CEO. There were more people that we let go than lately, and I don't know
Mhm,
if it's a combination of us being better at working with people, us being better at hiring, or us being, I don't know, more clear about our job descriptions.
mhm,
But definitely a clear job description is important.
mhm,
You want to make sure that your interviews are half explaining what the job is, explaining why, like what the company is selling the company, and then also making sure the person's a good fit and has the skills and expertise, and the drive and the willingness to
mhm,
grow. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm like, what did go wrong? And I have to take it's got to be us. Like I feel like it's all a matter of making sure that you've explained
right.
the positions and that you're really finding the right person.
Mhm,
And maybe we just weren't asking the right questions or we weren't clear enough about our
mhm,
expectations up front.
yeah.
I would say those are two big things.
Yeah, and it's always something about the company. It's not ever really the candidate that you've hired. It's
No.
something about your process or your alignment or something that's not working the way it should
Right.
be, right?
And it's hard, you don't know these things when you're just starting off.
That's
It's
right.
a lot, or if no one, tells you
Mhm,
direct, or even if
right.
people tell you, sometimes you just don't know until you really know and you've experienced it.
Mhm,
But I think, things like 30, 60, 90 degree or 30, 60, 90 day
mhm,
expectations and following through on those, clear
mhm,
feedback in those early
mhm,
days. That's really important because otherwise, you just aren't on the same page, or you may not be. If you
yeah,
don't
that's
know for sure you're on the same page, you better check.
yeah, right. So, let's say for a minute that I wanted to hire content writers to start writing content for me. Paint me a picture. What does that process look like?
Yeah, great. So, first, we try to evaluate whether you're a fit for our self service side or our managed services side.
Okay.
And the differences are that self service is more of a SaaS experience. You set up an account and then you input orders as needed in the platform. Whereas the managed service side is more of you are set up an account manager. You have a monthly content strategy review where we discuss sort of what your plans are for the
Right.
month, feedback on previous. So we're gonna, first evaluate what are you trying to produce, how often,
Mhm,
what's the volume, what types
mhm,
of writers do you need,
mhm.
and so first, like once we decide that, let's assume you're a managed services
Right.
client that's the need for you.
Which would be
Um,
plain, I might add. The other would not be up my alley.
Right. And that's really where we focus and where our revenue comes from the most is the managed services, because that's the high volume. You're
Mhm,
producing a lot of content. That means that we're going to be working with you more often. That means we're going to be getting more revenue from you and we're going to be spending more time with you.
right.
Um, and so with that, we do a kickoff call. So you're
Mhm,
set up with your account manager. Pre the kickoff call, we set up an account in the system. So we have
mhm,
the platform where you're set up with an account. Any of your team members can be added as users, and we ask you to fill out a content brief.
mhm,
So our brief asks about what topics do you want to cover, who's your target audience, what's your goal for this
mhm,
content, do you have a tone, a style, like some of those things that we need to know to brief writers on how to write for you.
mhm,
So we start there, and then in the kickoff, we review that. So we'll say, like, we'll make sure that your account manager knows exactly what you're looking for. They'll ask questions, they'll make recommendations, and then we start writing. But it's not as simple as that
yeah,
because
sure.
there's like kind of a calibration phase. because we'll pick writers. So we hand select the writers. Our clients are not typically involved in that process, but they can be if they want. But usually, with our experience with the network and our understanding of who we've got and what their strengths are, we'll pick. We'll base it off of expertise and what you need. So, what industry are you in? How do you want to speak? What's your tone? And then with that, we'll assign and we'll get them started. But sometimes we don't make the best pairing. Sometimes what we thought would be the right fit isn't. And so
Right.
there's that calibration phase to get
Mhm.
feedback, to hear what your thoughts are. You can ask for revisions. And then it's usually like over the first month that we go through a
Mhm.
good bit of that while we're getting to know you. And then, we scale from there, kind of thing.
Well, and you want to know, what the person's voice is, right? And that
Exactly.
takes
Exactly.
to learn that as well.
Yep.
You're in a pretty competitive business, yeah?
Yes.
So tell me about the competitive nature of the business
Yes.
and what
So,
and what you're doing to, distinguish yourself as someone different.
right. So, we're competing with companies like ContentWriters, so other platforms and marketplaces. We're competing with agencies that work maybe a little bit more custom, more closely with their clients. We're kind of an in between, but we're also competing with internal writers. We're competing with
Right.
freelancers,
Right.
because there's some companies that want to hire directly,
Right.
but could maybe do even better if they hired a company like ContentWriters. But
Yeah, good.
there's a status quo there.
Want to talk
They're just used to having
about that.
the writer right next to them, or on, just right there, and with that industry, that internal
Mhm.
knowledge, that they don't feel comfortable, like they don't think that an external can do the same.
Right.
And even, yeah, or some companies think they want to manage their own group of freelancers. But what we do to try to differentiate ourselves from all of those options, whether it's a competitor that looks a little bit more like us, or if it's something as different as in-house, um, is we just try to really make things efficient. So we try to show that we can save you so much more time than hiring people, managing people. We can also provide a lot more flexibility than just
Mhm.
having those 3 or 4 people that you hired and expecting them to do it all. We have people who can be great at white papers. We can have people who
Right.
can be great at product descriptions,
Right.
that can, if you're an agency, that can speak to all the different industries and audiences of your clients. So we really differentiate by, you know, the adding more efficiency, the hand selection of writers, the scalability that we offer. And we're always building our platform and making it. We really build our platform based on client feedback and
Mhm.
by input from our clients. So we try to make sure that we're differentiated from others. I have seen others. There are some good ones out there, but there are a lot that just aren't a great experience. So we want our experience to be the best, so that
Mhm.
it's not only efficient, but it's pleasant. Like you don't go into ContentWriters and you're can't find anything, or you don't like, it's just an unpleasant experience. We've all had those in SaaS platforms, because even for our managed services, it's a hybrid. You're always using the platform in some way, but we want to make that way good. We want to make it so you're not dreading that part, that it's actually makes sense for you, but you still have that point of contact you can call and speak with. And
Right. Emily, how do you find your prospects, or do they find you?
it's a combination. We have a sales team, and we do a lot of outbound. We have a pretty traditional SDR and account executive type of
Mhm.
setup, but we also do a lot of our own marketing. We do pay per click, so we have PPC ads running on Google and Bing, and some Facebook retargeting. And then we also have our own content marketing strategy with our blog and our LinkedIn and other social platforms.
Mhm. Interesting. What does the sales cycle tend to look like?
It varies depending on inbound and outbound. Where if a client's coming to us, they're more ready to buy. It might be
Mhm.
more of like a 30-day type of scenario.
Right.
But if we're going outbound and especially if we're going outbound and the company uses in-house writers to start, that is like the longest sales cycle, because it's sort of a bit of re-education and showing value to someone who really just has no idea what it would be like to work with an external writing company. So yeah, it can be anywhere from like 30 to 90 days, I would say. And we have a nice process, I think, where we do introductory calls, we show a proposal, we'll show a demo if you'd like to see, inside a little bit more. We'll show samples and things like that. So that's kind of how that looks.
What are the biggest challenges you're facing within your industry?
Yeah, I mean, the competition is real, and that's also competition for writers, right? Because and content marketing has done really well with COVID and the pandemic and things like that. And
Okay.
it's been great as far as the market over the past couple years. And that also is a great thing for freelancers working with clients directly. So there's a lot of competition. There's competition for talent as well on both the writing side and just, employees.
Carol Schultz here. Thanks for watching this excerpt from Authentically Successful. The conversation doesn't end there. So if you want to hear this episode in full and all my conversations with many other successful founders and CEOs, please visit verticalelevation.com/podcast.